This may look like a classic bakery egg tart, but it's made entirely with simple animal-based ingredients. A buttery shortbread crust and a silky egg custard come together in a way that feels both familiar and refined. Come along with me into the kitchen as we make this carnivore egg tart from scratch. For the crust, we'll be using 3/4 of a cup of unsalted softened butter, 3/4 of a cup of skim milk powder. But if you prefer a richer crust, you can also use whole milk powder instead. And I'll show you both outcomes at the end of this video. One 1/4 of a cup of egg white protein powder, a 1/4 teaspoon unrefined sea salt, and 1 large egg yolk. For the egg custard filling, we'll use 3 large egg yolks, 1 whole large egg, 2 tablespoons of unsalted melted butter, a cup of heavy cream, a 1/4 teaspoon unrefined sea salt, and optionally for flex carnivores, 1 teaspoon of raw honey or 2 tablespoons of lactose powder for a more traditional egg tart sweetness. We're going to start by preparing the crust and preheating the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. In a bowl, cream the softened butter until it looks smooth and light. Then add the milk powder, egg white protein powder, unrefined sea salt, and egg yolk. The egg white protein powder helps give this dough structure and stability, which makes it easier to work with and helps it hold its shape while baking. It also allows the crust to behave more like traditional shortbread without needing any flour. From a nutritional standpoint, egg white protein powder is a clean source of high-quality protein that supports muscle repair and overall strength. Mix everything together just until a soft, cohesive dough forms, being careful not to overwork it. For this recipe, we'll be using 3-inch carbon steel tart pans. Carbon steel heats up quickly and evenly, which helps the sides of the crust set right away so they stay upright. And I'll lightly grease the tart pans using a basting brush made of boar bristles and a natural beech handle. For the fat, I'll be using bacon grease that has been collected in this bacon grease container. I'm lightly greasing the tart pans so the crusts release evenly after baking. This also helps protect the surface of the carbon steel and keeps everything from sticking. A thin, even layer is all you need here. Carbon steel is a safer option than many non-stick pans because it does not contain chemical coatings that can degrade with heat. That means that you can bake with confidence knowing there is nothing unwanted transferring into your food. Divide the dough evenly between the 10 lightly greased tart pans. This helps keep all the tarts baking evenly and gives them a consistent look. You can use a small scoop or spoon to portion the dough if that makes it easier. Now we're going to press the dough firmly and evenly into the base and up the sides of each tart pan. I'll be wearing blue nitrile gloves for this, which makes it much easier to work with the dough and keep things nice and clean. They also help prevent the warmth of my hands from softening the butter too quickly, which keeps the crust easier to shape. You can really focus on getting clean edges and an even thickness when the dough stays cool. I specifically choose blue nitrile gloves because if a piece ever tears off, it's easy to see against the food and it can be removed right away. Once all the dough is pressed into the tart pans, we will chill them in the fridge for 20 minutes. You'll know the shells are fully chilled when they are firm to the touch, which means we're ready for the next step. I'll be lining each pan with unbleached parchment. Unbleached parchment is a great choice because it avoids the extra chemical processing used in bleached paper, making it a cleaner option for baking. And I'll be using ceramic pie weights to help support the base and the sides of the crust while they set in the oven. You can also use uncooked dry rice or coarse salt if you don't have pie weights. First, we'll cut the parchment to the right size for each of the tart pans, leaving a little extra space around the edges so the pie weights are easily removed later. That extra bit of paper makes this step much simpler and keeps the crust from being disturbed. Next, we'll place the parchment into each pan and fill them with pie weights. This helps hold the crust in place so it keeps its shape while it bakes. For the full recipe card, you can head over to carnivorecollections.com. Then we'll place the pans in the oven and bake for 10 to 12 minutes until the crust structure is set. Once the crusts have set, carefully lift out the parchment and the pie weights. Be sure to take a quick look at each pan and remove any pie weights that have slipped onto the crust. While the dough is still warm, this is a great time to use a spoon to gently reshape any spots that need a little smoothing. Don't worry if the crust looks a bit uneven right now, since it will even out as it bakes again. And now it's time to return the shells to the oven and bake an additional 6 to 8 minutes until the edges are lightly golden. And here are the crusts after the second bake. We'll let them cool completely, then refrigerate them for about 20 to 30 minutes before adding the filling. Now let's move on to preparing the egg custard. Here we have our 3 large egg yolks and 1 whole egg. Gently whisk the eggs, being careful not to incorporate too much air. Then carefully warm the heavy cream on the stovetop until just steaming. Do not allow it to boil. At this point, slowly pour the warm cream into the eggs while whisking continuously. Using the same pan, go ahead and melt the butter, then stir it directly into the mixture. And add sea salt and an optional sweetener if you're using one. Next, strain the custard through a fine mesh sieve or strainer to create an ultra-smooth texture. This step helps remove any small bits of eggs and helps the custard bake evenly. It also gives the finished tarts that classic silky bakery-style finish. Taking an extra moment here makes a noticeable difference in the final texture. For this next step, we'll reduce the oven temperature to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Then carefully pour the custard into each chilled tart shell, filling just to the rim. Pouring slowly helps keep the custard smooth and prevents bubbles from forming on the surface. The chilled shells also help the custard set more evenly once it goes into the oven. If you notice any bubbles, you can gently tap the pan to release them. Take your time with this step so each tart bakes evenly. Once filled, they are ready to go straight into the oven, and we'll bake them for 20 to 30 more minutes. The tarts are done when the edges are lightly golden and the centers still have a gentle jiggle. They will continue to set as they cool, so it's important not to overbake them. From here, we'll let the tarts cool down to room temperature. Once the tarts are fully cooled, I recommend removing them from the pans. As the butter in the crust firms up, it can become more difficult to release the tarts later, especially after they've been refrigerated. Using a paring knife, gently loosen the sides of the crust from the pan, being careful not to break it. Take your time with this step and work slowly around the edges. Once you feel the base released, I find it easiest to tip the tart upside down and let it slide out of the pan on its own. And here we have our two tart variations. The one on the left is made with skim milk powder, while the one on the right uses whole milk powder. The whole milk powder version will brown a bit more quickly, so it's a good idea to keep an eye on the tarts as they bake to avoid overbaking. Honestly, both versions are a real treat and turn out beautifully. And here we have a beautiful carnivore egg tart. It released cleanly from the pan and holds its shape beautifully. This is always such a satisfying moment. Cutting through the tart shows just how well the crust and custard hold their structure. The outer crust stays defined while the inner egg filling remains soft and gently set, very much like a classic bakery egg tart. It's always rewarding to see that clean contrast come together. Let me know in the comments if this is a recipe you plan to try and whether you would use skim or whole milk powder. Thank you so much for cooking along with me today. You can visit carnivorecollections.com for the full recipe card and to explore more carnivore recipes. I look forward to having you join me again soon for the next recipe.